Hey guys, and welcome to a bit of a new series here on the channel, running through all the gear we've been using on our big lap and how it's been performing with pretty much daily use. If you're new to the channel, my partner Bianca and I are currently traveling Australia full-time in our Isuzu D-Max and very DIY canopy fit out. We've been on the road for about 4 or 5 months now, so we thought we'd share our experiences to help you guys decide what gear is right for your setup. The goal is to eventually run through pretty much every bit of the setup in separate videos, but we thought we'd start with a bit of gear we've been using the most frequently and absolutely relying on the most heavily, our 12-volt setup. So this is the main 12-volt system up on the headboard just here. There's a big lithium battery kind of behind these drawers and below that wall there. There's a control hub here with a DC-DC charger, inverter down here, and there's also solar panels on the roof, and we do have a little power station here for running our laptops down on our camping table. Now, all of this was a very DIY installation in my garage at home, so if you want to check out that install video, I will link it in the description down below if you're looking for any tips to get your stuff installed yourself and save a bit of money on installation. You'll also notice there's a very orange theme happening throughout the whole 12-volt setup, and that's not just because orange is the main color in the Explore Bound logo, it's actually because most of this gear is from iTech World. Now, we did choose to run all this iTech World gear essentially because I've had a lot of experience running iTech World products in the past, and they've always been fantastic. And when you're building something you need to rely on every day for a lap around Australia, you really do need to use a brand you genuinely trust. Now, iTech World does happen to be a sponsor of the channel, which we are very appreciative of, but I just wanted to touch on the fact that that kind of came about because we chose to run their gear, and we're not running their gear because we're sponsored, if that makes sense. It's a bit complicated. Yeah. We're in a pretty fortunate position where we do get contacted quite frequently by some big brands wanting us to swap this gear out with products from their brand instead. But for us, what matters the absolute most is having that I guess that trust built up over the years that the gear is going to work, is going to keep our fridge running, is going to keep our food cold while we're living on the road. So we've chosen to run this gear, and we're very fortunate that iTech World has then been happy to sponsor the channel as well. But you guys make your own decisions.
We would have bought all of this regardless of sponsorship.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we'll start running through all the different components of this 12-volt setup to let you know how each individual piece has been performing. And we'll start with something you can't actually see on the setup here, and that's our big battery, which is at the heart of the setup, and that lives behind this drawer module and behind that wall there. That is a very, very big battery. So that's our iTech 400X Pro lithium battery. It's pretty massive, right? It's
very massive. It definitely seems overkill, especially when you first brought it home.
Yeah.
I do exist.
Bianca's here as well. I thought we'd both run you through this, this setup.
But I remember because we had like a 120 before
so we went from a 120 up to a 400 which is crazy.
When you brought the battery home, it was like double the size, and I was like, why did you bring such a massive battery home?
I know, so...
My God, never thought I'd eat those words.
The specs on the battery are, it's a 400 amp hour LiFePO4 lithium battery, and that's the style you want for a lithium battery. Make sure it's LiFePO4. 400 amp hours is insane. That is so much power. And what's also good about it is it also has an extremely high discharge rating. So you got a 250 amp continuous discharge, which means you can run some really huge appliances. I essentially decided to go for one this big because I knew we'd be running a massive fridge. We've got a 115 litre upright fridge. Uprights always draw a fair bit more power than the standard chest style fridges, and we're also running a dedicated freezer and charging all our camera gear and induction cooking, running the hot water system. Like, there's
charging your laptop.
Charging my laptop, which just eats the poor battery. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So that's the reason we went for one that big. I did still think it was going to be overkill for this trip. I was like 400, like.
We'll never use that.
We're never going to use that.
We camp up for a week.
But in hindsight, we are so glad we went for a battery that size. And to be honest, we could almost do with like one even bigger.
Definitely could. If we could get the charge into this, which is another story separate to this whole thing, it's still the alternator. But like, I reckon we'd actually be better off with like an 800. If a 600 were awesome, an 800 would be like perfect. Because then we could camp up.
It's one of those things like you'll never have enough power, and like the longer you camp up, the more you'll use. Especially on a day like today, it's cloudy. We do have solar on the roof, but we're not getting much solar into the battery at all, and it seems to be our luck when we do decide to camp up for a couple of days. There's cloud cover, so we can't get as much charge into the battery as we'd like to when parked up stationary. But other than that, the battery has been performing really well, running everything we need, keeping our fridge running, keeping the freezer running.
It has been faultless.
It's been faultless. So I did do a capacity test on this battery after about 6 months. I think I'd drawn a few thousand amp hours from it in total. Did a capacity test to see how much of that 400 amp hours was actually left after using it quite a decent amount for its first 6 months. I was able to pull 411 amp hours from it. I'll chuck that up on the screen. It was either 411 or 415, but essentially more than its advertised usable capacity. So I was honestly stoked for that. To be able to get more than the advertised amount is it's definitely something you want.
And I'd be really interested if we can redo that test when we get home after having used used it continuously, daily for like, you know, almost a year. So
that's a great point. Actually, when we get back, and maybe by the time you're watching this video, I will pin a comment down below on an updated capacity test after using it every day for our full lap of Australia. Next up is our 12 volt control hub, which is a piece you can see up here, just here, with a built-in 40 amp DC charger. Now this is something I did think long and hard about getting, because in my previous builds, I've always kind of just mounted everything separately. So I've chucked a DC charger somewhere, a fuse box somewhere, all my outlets somewhere, and my switches. But it's just so tempting to go for something that kind of had it all built and ready to go, including all your solar inputs. 99% of that wiring is kind of done for you and ready to go. And I tell you what, I've been pretty grateful to have gone down that route, because it did make this whole setup really straightforward and easy to install. And it looks nice and neat, especially with that inverter down there. Like, everything looks nice and flush, and all that wiring was kind of taken care of, aside from obviously piping the main heart of the wiring up into the control box. Everything else is basically done for you. So this has been essentially faultless for us, and it's been great to use all these switches for all the different accessories. My aftermarket stickers are starting to peel off. So here I've got a switch here for the main roof lights that are on right now and outside the canopy too. DC outlet for my power outlets on the other side of the canopy. That's a big master switch for the fridge, which in hindsight, I wouldn't have put this in. I reckon this was a real mistake putting that in, because flicking that switch turns our fridge off. And you can imagine when we're packed for a lap, like this side is pretty full. Here, yeah. And I was waiting for the day when something falls and like knocks that switch off, turning our fridge off. So yeah, so we actually sometimes, you can probably see a little bit of sticky residue.
We actually sometimes tape that switch on, just so that we don't risk it by being bumped off on some of the crazy full drive tracks we're doing, like what we are now.
Touch wood, it hasn't happened yet, but we are kind of conscious of that, and we're waiting for the day. Next switch is the water pump underneath the car, and we have a bonus switch here, not yet used, so maybe one day that switch will find a use. All those switches are run through the fuse box there, so when I do tap an accessory on, I just put a corresponding fuse in there, and it's good to go. So it has made accessory wiring super easy, which is good.
I like this fuse box as well, because it's got little lights and it'll actually glow red when one of them blows.
Yeah, I can actually show you that.
Yeah,
so this fuse was to blow. Like, oh, great,
that was my roof light. But you can see, so this little red, and they've got one on each side. So immediately you can see straight away which fuse is blown without even having to take the lid off if you really wanted to. Or just first off, like you can see if a fuse is blown without having to check them manually.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Super handy having all these outlets down the bottom here too. We've got a couple of 12 volt sockets, which to be honest, we don't use those that often.
No, we never use those.
Then we have two USBs, 2.1 amps each. Sorry, 2.4 amps each, my mistake. And then another USB A and a USB Type C. Yeah. The only thing I don't really like about this particular control hub, this is the older model, but it does have this voltage-based battery monitor system here. Now,
somewhat useless.
If you're using this control hub with an AGM style battery, that would be totally fine, but with a lithium battery, it doesn't give you an accurate reading, so we kind of just completely disregard that reader there and just run our own battery monitor to keep an eye on our battery percentage. But I will mention that the new version of this now does have a shunt-based monitor, which is a lot more accurate. So we've got the old model here, but that's the only thing I really don't like about it. So also built into the front of this control hub here is the 40 amp DC charger. Also another 40 amp charger, although we can't really use it properly, which is no fault of this gear, it's a fault of the poor D-Max. We've got a very small factory alternator, and when you're running the car, you're already using, the alternator is pretty much just built for a stock car, so when you're trying to pull an extra 40 amps from that to charge your battery, it's just not up to the task.
What's our alternator?
90 amp alternator.
Yeah, so we have a 90 amp alternator. I think the most we've seen through this is about 26-ish, 27. Yeah. Hard to know because we run solar at the same time all the time. But yeah, as I said, that's the alternator's fault.
Yeah, and I've run one of these DC chargers in my previous car and got the full 40, so it's no fault of the DC charger, it's just the fact the alternator is tiny in these poor D-Maxes, so we are looking to upgrade that in the future. And moving down, the last piece on this headboard here is our 2000 watt iTech World inverter. Now this is actually the older model, the new ones look a little bit more fancy than this, but we like this old girl, it's been working pretty well for us. The reason I went for a 2000 watt inverter was purely because I wanted to run the induction cooker, which draws about 1400, just a single induction cooker. Maybe a coffee machine every now and then as well, but not at the same time, which is something I definitely learned the hard way. And also we run our Starlink off this as well. There's more efficient ways to run Starlink nowadays, but we just still run it off 240 volt power, and it's been working really well. So this thing, honestly, we use this, I'd say every single day.
Every single day, yeah, definitely.
Sometimes multiple times a day, sometimes for like 24 hours straight or 48 hours straight, especially if we've got the internet up and running.
Yep.
Yeah.
We also charge your laptop off of that usually.
Yeah, laptops get charged off this, drone batteries get charged off this. Now, I did consider going for, yeah, this gets charged off that as well. I did consider going for a 3000 watt inverter as well. The main benefit being, obviously I could run my induction cooker and coffee machine at the same time, but that's not a big enough reason to
need
go
to
for the
cook
bigger one.
breakfast and the coffee at the same time.
But it also would allow for us to run a twin induction cooker. But honestly, in hindsight, very glad I went for the 2000 because we've barely got enough power to induction cookers with a single one. Like running a twin would use twice the power, and our battery would be flat after a couple of nights. So 2000 is good, and it's nice and compact as well. So you'll notice here, look how well they line up, hey? They're almost the exact same width. So that tucks up real nice and neatly on that headboard there. And honestly, just very happy with this all around. We've got a remote turn on switch that plugs in just here. And this wire then runs its whole way back to the kitchen side where we have 4 additional outlets plugged in through an extension cable because I'm no electrician and I can't cut and wire my own sockets in. So on the other side, without coming to this side at all, we can turn that inverter on and use our 240 volt power from the other side.
Yeah, the only other thing we've added, which is more of a physical thing you'll see, is just this little strip here, which quite often actually comes off.
Oh, now you've done it.
It's just double tape there, but that is purely because the inverter does get quite hot, which is quite normal.
Yep.
But it means if when we have stuff packed in here, just when we're camped up, anything that rests on that, we tend to have our table sitting here, and it's plastic. And I think you actually put that there to protect the
I did,
inverter,
yeah, because I figured the table would be like smashing into it. So
yeah, so it's just a little bit of rubber protection, but it also helps because that inverter gets so hot. If we have something plastic resting against it, it doesn't slowly melt it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but
anyway.
that has been working absolutely fantastically. I've got it run through a circuit breaker back there as well to protect it. It's never tripped it. Actually, that's one thing I will mention. It's a good testament to the poor inverter. Quite a few times I've been induction cooking breakfast and I've gone to make a pod coffee as well. Very first world problems, I know, and feel free to roast me in the comments down below. But that puts the draw up to around 2,500 watts, which is obviously more than the 2000 this puts out. No damage to the inverter. All it does is like trip it, so I just have to turn it off and on again, and then happy days. So I think that's a testament to this trusty inverter for having those fail safes in place to cut it out to not cause any damage. So the next piece of the puzzle is actually on the roof of my rooftop tent, and it's probably the newest part of the setup, aside from that little charge station thing there. I'll pull my tent roof down to be able to show you. Here is 2 150 watt slimline iTech World solar panels. I've essentially stuck those down to the rooftop tent with a thin layer of core flute in between. The idea behind that is for 2 reasons, right? One is for cooling, so air can actually pass through there to keep the panels kind of relatively cool. And the second thing is because I've stuck it down, if I do ever want to change these panels, if I'd stuck the panel straight down, almost impossible to remove. With core fluid, I can kind of run a blade under one strand at a time and then pull the solar panels off to potentially change them.
But it'll be possible.
Yeah. So they were put on pretty like a month or so before we actually left on this big lap. So this has kind of been our testing field.
It was like 2 weeks or like a week.
It was a hectic couple of weeks before we actually set off. These we have been so happy to have. They've been performing astoundingly well, right? Like,
absolutely. I have walked all over these. Not on purpose, just I climb around the tent to get the latches, and the poor solar panels have been stepped on many times by me.
So I wasn't sure how these were going to perform compared to more rigid, larger panels with the built-in airflow underneath and all that. The reason I did opt for these was purely so we could still fit in the garage at home. I know we're traveling right now, but we are going to be back home at some point, and I still want to fit in the garage at home. And with these, we fit in by it's like a centimetre, right?
Yeah, like it's very, very slim, but it fits.
Yeah. So very happy with those. We see varying levels of input coming in depending on how clean they are and how clear the skies are. I think the most we've seen come in from the 300 watts in total is around 18, 19 amps,
I think so.
Thereabouts. On average, with like a mostly sunny day when they're mostly facing the sun, we'll see about 16 amps, 16 or 17 amps.
Usually it's sitting between 10 to 15, but it's really hard to know exactly because obviously we've also got stuff running all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So the fridge draws about 5 to 6 amps, the freezer draws 4 to 5. If we're running lights, if we're charging our phones, all that draws, so it's hard to see.
We haven't had a chance to actually test them with nothing plugged in because from the moment they were installed, we've been on the road.
Exactly. I have been able to recharge the battery by about 150 amp hours in a day, which was awesome.
That was really cool.
But that was directing the solar panels directly towards the sun, wherever it was in the sky. So we were literally like playing a game of chase. This tent is great for that because you can kind of, like I've just done, put down one side to face it towards the sun. So if you set up kind of, I guess, north-south facing and the sun's like rising,
east to west.
like east to west, you can kind of keep adjusting your tent to follow it.
You can fold it this way or you can fold it the other way.
Yeah, so definitely would not hesitate to recommend those panels and VHB tape as an extra product as well, because these are not going anywhere.
No,
like we've been cruising 130 k's an hour through the NT and yeah, no dramas at all. I did put a bit of tape at the front there as well, but yeah, just
and they've had rain, hail, well, not hail, but they've had rain, sunshine, wind, dirt, dust, rocks, sticks,
everything.
Mud. They have been coated in every type of mud you can imagine. They have been scraped along bushes and sticks and branches.
Yanke's been walking across them.
And the most you'll ever see is, if I can show it, I don't know if I can actually see it because it's tiny. Somewhere there's the tiniest little dent in one of them.
But very good panels, obviously the same as almost every solar panel. They're not going to be anywhere near as effective in cloud cover like they are today. We only see, I don't know, probably like 30% of the charge going in compared to pure sun, only a couple of amps. Enough to probably keep your fridge running, but that's pretty much to be expected with, especially this style of panel. You might get more efficiency from the larger solid panels, but the trade-off's kind of worth it in my opinion for the advantages to these slimline panels.
I think the only thing we change is add a third one if we could shuffle them along and fit 3 across. I think that's but we just couldn't.
You'll never feel like you've got too much solar, but you might feel like you don't have enough. So as many panels as you can fit on, chuck them on. Yeah, and that's the solar panels.
Oh, flip them up. We're getting sunshine.
Oh, back.
Get that solar.
Yes, get that sweet solar. So the last piece of the puzzle is this little power station here. I've just brought it around to the main kitchen side of the canopy.
Let's see what we're talking about, charging things.
Excuse the mess, because I thought you guys might be interested in also seeing our little outlet station around here as well. So I'll just turn some lights on and move our tea towels out of the way. As I said, we are currently living on the road. So this is where we essentially use the majority of our power when we're not charging things on the other side. So that's our Starlink plugged in to this power board here, which also gives us a bunch more extra USBs. We then have my little custom panel on the side here with 3 USB-As, 1 USB-C, and just a 12-volt cigarette lighter plug down there.
Why you included that as a cigarette plug?
The logic here was I wanted every single style of power outlet. So you'll notice we have 240, we have USB-A, USB-C, 12-volt cigarette lighter plug there, and
we have
Anderson.
This random Anderson plug that has never once in its life been used. Neither is that cigarette socket.
So that's just, I guess that's just me, right? Like I wanted to have all my bases covered. In hindsight, I'd probably do away, I'd leave the Anderson because that
I would leave
could potentially come in use.
But I would definitely swap this out because believe it or not, when we're charging everything, we are using, like right now we're using all 4 of these, but we also use every single one of these and then still have stuff charging on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, we use a ridiculous amount of power, hence our necessity for that big battery. Up here is our little switch panel for our lights, both inside and outside, very DIY, and this was the best thing ever. It doesn't charge as fast as we'd like, but this is a wireless charger for quad lock cases. So I already had a quad lock case, Bianca got one as well for the trip, so we can just slap our phone up there, especially if we're like playing music through the speaker, and it kind of can just live up there, getting charged, be out of the way, and don't require an extra cable or plug to run it.
Yeah, that was handy.
That's quite good. This is that inverter remote switch. So that's what I was mentioning on the other side. That is plugged back into the inverter, so we can toggle the inverter on and off using this switch without having to access the other side. Anyway, so that's our main 12-volt panel on this side of the canopy, and the last piece of gear is this little power station we actually got on the road. For 2 reasons. One, we wanted a way of actually charging our laptops and the occasional bit of camera gear while being away from the car without running like a 5-meter cable to charge your laptop over at the bench.
Quite often we'll be working at this little table here, and sometimes we don't want to be parked up right next to the kitchen because it's very annoying if you're trying to get something from the kitchen.
Exactly, and also how we were mentioning earlier, if we're parked up for a few days and we're concerned about that battery life, this is just that little bit of extra charge. You can kind of use this to charge your laptops and not be taxing that big battery, which you are relying on to keep the fridge running. So this is a little iTech 300-watt portable power station. Absolute beast of a unit, really like this thing. It's got a 300-watt inverter, so that's plenty for running your smaller things, so charging drone batteries, charging laptops and things like that. Not enough to run, coffee machines, but you don't expect that from something that's this small, right? I think it works out to roughly a 20 amp hour capacity. Tons for like charging your phones, laptops, bits of camera gear, like Bluetooth speaker, GoPro, stuff like that. It's got all your standard ports, got a 12-volt cigarette lighter port there.
Fridge off it.
Yeah, actually that's another reason to have this too, is if we have a failure of our battery system, we could, for like half a day, run our fridge off this. And freezer off this, just while we're trying to sort out a solution for the main system. So it's not going to get you by indefinitely, but might just get us by long enough to fix a problem with the main system.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a very good backup.
Handy to have this. Got a bunch of USBs, only one USB-C, it'd be cool to have a couple of those, but other than that, 4 USB-As, and you can also use this to kind of adapt to additional USB-Cs if you need that.
Could that run Starlink? This is a conversation we had.
Absolutely can. So we've run Starlink off that USB-C port here.
Provided you have a good cable. Starlink's very funny. You might have a good enough battery or thing to charge it, but you've got to have the right cable.
Yeah, so we do have a genuine Starlink USB-C power supply cable. So that cable plugged into this specific point there, that 100 watt USB-C, can happily run Starlink, or of course through the inverter there as well. One thing we did notice that if we were running Starlink off that USB-C and then using all these other plugs as well, every now and then the Starlink would just reboot. So it might just like, I don't know, alternate its power supply just enough to reboot Starlink, which is a pain in the ass. So if you're running it off Starlink, you kind of only want to be using that one USB-C. And if you need some more USBs, just run them off an adapter in that 12 watt hub there. But beast of a unit, this charge is super quick and gives us a bit of extra lifespan and the ability to edit down on the table.
So I just thought I'd jump in quickly here before we wrap up this video, because one thing we haven't really mentioned for all of that 12 volt stuff is how well it has stood up to all the physical stuff we've put it through.
Oh my God, yeah.
So we have been through some pretty gnarly four-wheel drive tracks.
More than we expected, right?
Yeah, way more than we expected. We're currently halfway along the old Telly track in Cape York in the top of Queensland. So we are doing everything in this track, including gunshot. We've done a mini version of gunshot and whatnot. So yeah, look, we're going over corrugations. We're putting the car in some pretty precarious positions, and we are bumping and crashing everything around.
We have cracked the bull bar. We've busted up the draw runners on part of my kitchen build. On the other side, it's just been relentless.
And many other little things always happening, but all of this 12 volt gear, including the battery as well, and like all the wiring for it. So part of this is also just testament to Daniel. Well done. He's done a very good job.
A lot of long nights in the garage for that.
He's done an excellent job of wiring this all together, because the amount of corrugations and stuff, like everything just rubs against it. And so you can imagine any wiring that's sitting against something that's vibrating, it will slowly wear through. But none of this so far, touch wood, has had any issues. So it must have good wiring in there, because not a single thing's come loose, not a single thing has blown a fuse, and not a single thing has gone wrong, and that's huge.
Absolutely could not agree more. And one thing I just wanted to mention too is one of the reasons we chose to do this video now as the start of this new series is iTech World does have a bit of a sale on right now with some pretty crazy prices on this stuff, lower than I've seen for quite a while. And I did touch base with the team, and they're still allowing the Explore Bound discount code to be used in addition to their existing sale. So if you guys are looking for 12 volt gear and you're already considering this stuff, now's probably the best time to go about getting it, and chuck in that code as well to save yourself an extra 5% too.
Yeah. So anyway, that wraps up this review of the 12 volt gear. But if you guys have any other gear in particular you want us to go through, let us know in the comments or flick us a message or whatever else, because we will be going through all our gear. But as I said, if there's something in particular you want to hear about, let us know. So
with that in mind, if you have any questions about this 12 volt setup, let us know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching this episode, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Catch you later.